Hello everyone and welcome to the HGC Post Show number 4, 2018. This is for week 4 of Phase 1, Part 1, and I still really don't like that Blizzard calls it that. But we're gonna get into it. First things first, standings and recommended series. Quick update on my least favorite region, China. Super Perfect Team still undefeated and at plus 22 in their map score. CE coming in second, and then everyone else is just really far below them. It's really the only way to put it. Again, no recommended series this week. I will say that the casting for China has been very good. Tetcher and Kendrick have been doing a very good job. It's just China's not that good a region right now. I wish that were different. I wish there were some redeeming quality, but the way the format is different, the fact that half of the games aren't aired or casted, even though I do have access to the replays. China's in a rough spot, guys. China's in a rough spot, and it's purely a money thing. Everyone who was really good at Heroes of the Storm got offered more money to play other games, and therefore started playing those other games instead. China's, of course, the region where we had a team manager mortgage their home in order to get E-Star, old E-Star, to an international event because there was no other way to afford it. Pretty sure he never made his money back there, by the way. So until there's more money in the Heroes of the Storm Chinese scene, there's not going to be improvement, and I just don't know when that's going to happen. Moving away from depressing regions, we had a really good Korea set this week. So everyone knows Tempest, Ballistics, and KSV are the top 3 teams in Korea. So it would stand to reason that I would recommend the Ballistics versus KSV Black series, and I will recommend it. I will recommend it, but it's not the #1 series that I would recommend you watch this week. The #1 series that I recommend you watch this week is actually Team Blossom versus Gluck. The series wasn't perfect. It wasn't necessarily an indication of like really high level play, but it determined who the clash team was going to be, essentially, because Ballistics, KSV, and Tempest didn't drop any games, or in many cases any maps, to the 5 teams below them in the league, so they're guaranteed to go in some order of 1, 2, 3. Those are your 3 clash teams. Gluck was 4th before this week, and now that they played Blossom, they are 5th, and Blossom is 4th. So it really was sort of the determining match, and Gluck actually started out on a strong note and won game 1, and then Tempest 3-0'd. So from that point, it does put Tempest undefeated, Ballistics at 1 defeat to Tempest, KSV Black to 2 defeats by both Ballistic and Tempest, and Blossom has beaten Gluck, and I think Gluck has actually played all of all of Gluck's losses to date, I believe, except for the Blossom loss, were to a top team. So sort of an interesting narrative. There's a little bit of a, who's going to 4th? Who's going 4th is the question across the other regions. Moving over to you, Dignitas, still undefeated. Fnatic, 2 losses. Method, 2 losses, both at 4-2. They each have 1 game remaining. And Liquid at 3-3, Tricked at 3-3, Zealots at 3-3, and then Diamond Skin and Leftovers are pretty far down there. Was Tomb really repeated? I think that's an error. I can check the VOD, but I'm pretty sure that's just a Master League error. I actually don't know. I've been paying so much attention to the NA scene. I actually am not sure who's winning head-to-head right now for the 4th spot for EU. So it goes by match score first. So Liquid is firmly in 4th. Everyone has played their games. We actually might have do we really potentially have a 4-way tie in EU based on, and it's going to go to match score. Wow, EU is actually way more interesting than I thought it was, guys. I did not even notice that during prep. This is a little embarrassing. All right, recommended series. Hey, Dustin. Recommended series. I'm going to recommend Dignitas versus Fnatic. It generated the most questions of any EU series this weekend in post show. None of the games were close. I will say that. I didn't feel like any of the games were close. Dignitas was just straight up better than Fnatic in a variety of small ways, and some big ones. So, yeah. I am... It's hard to recommend that series when it was so one-sided. But I think it was good. If you don't necessarily want to watch that, watch the one game in the Liquid versus Dignitas series where Liquid won. Watch game 2. This is also a game... This game generated a lot of questions as well. So if you haven't watched any of the series from EU, watch this game and watch... Actually, this game is probably the best game that was played all weekend in a lot of ways from EU. It's all you need to watch. NA. So NA's in a really weird spot in terms of who's going forth. Currently, Heroes Hearth is 3-3. Gale Force Esports is 3-3. We beat them on head-to-head, and we are currently, as you can see, even on 112, lost 11, 113, lost 12 on map scores. So the way it's going to work is if we beat Tempo Storm, we're guaranteed to go to Clash. If Heroes Hearth loses to LFM Esports, we're guaranteed to go to Clash. If we both lose or we both win, then it gets really complicated. There's actually a Reddit thread detailing all the potential outcomes. And there's even a scenario where Team 12 does not go to Clash. Because, of course, if they lose, they could be 4-3 and lose the head-to-head against Heroes Hearth, and then Heroes Hearth ends up going. I think in that particular event, there even needs to be a specific match score. Like, Team 12 needs to get 3-0'd so that they don't pick up an additional map. It's a little unlikely, but lots of interesting things. Lots and lots and lots of interesting things. As for recommended series, Team Freedom versus Team 12. It's the two of the top NA teams playing off against each other. Team Freedom gets destroyed, or excuse me, Team 12 gets destroyed by Stitches in game 1 and 2, and then Team 12 actually comes back with the reverse sweep. In the last game, they pick up their own Stitches and show Team Freedom what it feels like to play against that hero, who is busted, by the way. So it's a really interesting series in quite a lot of ways. And that's the recommended series for the week. We'll now move on to post-show questions. And guys, there are a lot of post-show questions this week. And a lot of them are really good, so we'll get right into it. Blossom versus Feliz Game 5. Chat and casters think taking the keep and getting Temple was dumb, but to me it seems like an amazingly smart and safe play given how much damage a single Temple does to the core. And this is a Sky Temple question, specifically, and it's just... It comes from not quite understanding the win condition on Sky Temple in a lot of cases. Sky Temple is the only map where you never have to go into the enemy team space. You never have to go into the enemy team space to win. You can actually just get temples and mercs and never move past like the midline of the map and win. There's not really another map where that's an optimal strategy. Blackheart's Bay. I meant in competitive, but Blackheart's Bay also has this rule. That is true. But Blackheart's Bay is, for many reasons, not considered, multiple reasons, not considered a competitive map. So Blossom is ahead, 3 levels, 20 to 17. They're up a talent tier. They could fight. Feliz, so at 17 to 19, Feliz makes the call to just go boss. They're like, okay, we're behind in structures. What do you do when you're behind? On Sky Temple, you get boss and trying to live. Towers of Doom. Towers of Doom, you really do want to secure the enemy team structures. You like the optimal strategy involves going across the map and securing their structures. You can win on Towers of Doom without ever going past the midline of the map, but it's not the safe way to. It's not the best way to play that map. Whereas in Sky Temple, if you can get ahead in structures, the best way to play the map is just to trade temples the rest of the game, and eventually you win by default, unless the enemy team can end with boss. So a single temple ends the game. A single temple at any given point in the game, if there's no other structures remaining, kills core. That's just an automatic. This is a single temple phase, right? So ETC has stage dive. He has a global. By leaving ETC top, he can come into the fight whenever necessary, and everyone else can back to defend the boss. In addition to that, they have a camp pushing in. They had mid lane all the way pushed up. Actually, I think the biggest mistake that Blossom made here, and I'm going to call this a mistake, they did not rotate through the base and clear this wave. If they had rotated through the base and cleared this wave, they would have had one extra catapult on core, and it would have put Feliz in an even more impossible position. Like, straight up ridiculously impossible. Everyone backs, 4-man defense. Dahaka has to stay and push out the lane, so the worst case scenario, this is a 4v4, but Dahaka doesn't really have a bush nearby, and ETC can stage dive in directly. So they can force a full 5v5 if they want to, or they can, if not enough pressure is placed on them, ETC can stay top and just win the game. So Dahaka goes and tries to stop ETC. Blossom, with the talent tier advantage, wins the 4v4. ETC stage dives core. Everyone else is on the way. And again, look at this wave. Look at this wave. This wave would be dead if Blossom had cleared it before they left, which they could have done. It would have just taken one blizzard. So, I don't know what the casters were thinking. Devin, GG, hosting my stream for 9 viewers, thank you for this. I don't know what the casters were thinking or what chat was thinking there, but it was clearly the best way to just guarantee the win. They could have been more aggressive and just gone core, sure, but they don't really have a core comp. Like Genji, not a lot of core damage. Jaina, if you have Icy Veins up and you push Icy Veins, you do a lot of burst damage to the core, but then you're dead. Like, you're waiting for 15 seconds before you start doing substantial damage to core again. ETC, Uther, not really. Garrosh, eh. Like, if you have a Greymane or an Illidan or any of the other, like, core centric heroes, then yeah, go core there. But they didn't. And they were guaranteed to win if they got Temple, and they were guaranteed to win if they won a 5v4, which they could do, because Feliz is guaranteed to lose if they don't have someone in base clearing catapults. Like, there was no good option for Feliz there, and there were 3 good options for Blossom, so they just pursued all of them at the same time. And surprise, surprise, one of them worked. Jumping around a little bit, Dignitas versus Team Liquid Game 2. Was this a clown fiesta? Is the actual... So, here's the thing. This game was not a clown fiesta. This game was not a clown fiesta. This was an amazingly good game. And we're gonna gloss over the early game a little bit. Dignitas is better at macro. They're better at the early game on Tomb. You can see if we go anywhere in this VOD, Dignitas is just ahead. And they just get further and further and further ahead. But eventually we get to a point, right? It's actually, let's go over the bottom keep first. So 16 to 18, Dignitas is pushing in, and because Blaze has such amazing wave clear and he's just constantly pushing in this bottom lane, this web weaver actually gets all the way to keep. And Liquid spends all of their efforts defending basically 4v4 with Greymane clearing top against Dignitas' attempt to get mid-keep, but they've lost all of their walls. However, Dignitas does not have turn-in for a while after this, and Liquid has turn-in. They actually... This is the turnaround. This moment is where the game starts to turn around. So they get the turn-in, Johanna starts boss, Dignitas knows boss is being done, they all run towards it, but it's just Sport Billy on boss. We have a time trap right here in the bush. Eternal is going to go over here. They check the bush with Impale. Signal dodges, staying mounted. Hasawabs on Greymane is just playing peekaboo with the bush, finally gets into the bush. We see, and here's the thing that weirds me out a little bit. Hanzo is right there. We just saw the cue from Hanzo to check the bush. I don't know if Sonic Arrow was on cooldown, but we don't see Sonic Arrow used here at all for vision. I would have expected Sonic Arrow to come in, because if you know where they all are, you know, are they really doing boss? How low is the boss? Do we have to go in? But by going to boss, Liquid, a smart team won't fight over nothing. And Dignitas is a very smart team. They won't fight over nothing. So they're half a level from 20. If they decide not to fight here and Team Liquid gets boss, there's a fort in the way. Like, Dignitas doesn't have to fight over this boss at all. But on the other hand, it would give Liquid an opportunity to come back if they got turn-in plus boss. Maybe they get a keep. Like, maybe they actually get enough experience to hit 20 at the same time. So there's kind of like an ambivalence from Dig here, it looks like. And so the time trap triggers on a Nubrak. They get the root Chromie combo onto Blaze, and then the Blessed Shield onto Hanzo, the root, and he gets instantly deleted. Like, instantly deleted. Bunker comes out. They get the Condemn off the Bunker. And it's amazing how much CC... Like, Arthas did the root from here to CC 2 targets. Johanna did the Blessed Shield from here. The root follow-up was instant. So much damage from the Chromie onto Blaze, and the Hanzo was guaranteed to die anyway. We saw the cursed bullet value. And it was only 1 kill. Like, 1 kill may not seem like a lot. Bottom is guaranteed to be depushed by the Siege and the Catapults, so they're going to have to respond to bottom on this turn-in. But that's the moment, that kill literally allowed Liquid to stay in the game, because it gives them an opportunity to make something happen pre-20. If Dignitas had just played carefully and cleared waves, they actually would have been able to fight 20 versus 19, I think. And none of the following shenanigans would have happened. There's a concept called, in StarCraft it was called level thinking, where, you know, it's, if he does this, then my response should be this. But if he knows I'm doing this, then he'll actually do, like, it's like, how many levels deep do you want to go? The concept actually comes from something called OODA loops, or OODA loops. Observe, Orient, Decide, Act. And this was just a really good OODA loop from Liquid. They had just Johanna on the boss, so it was tagged, which made it look like they were actually doing it. Dignitas came in. They were spread out because they were getting bottom siege, which Team Liquid, you know, Team Liquid just assumed they were going to do bottom siege because it's sort of the obvious thing to do. Going to boss was risky. They took a risk that Dignitas did not necessarily expect them to take, and Dignitas sort of played into it and ended up getting instantly deleted. So middle Webweaver is still going to get a lot of value. It's 20. This is technically an even fight, essentially. Hanzo's not back yet, so this is down a talent tier, but 5v4. That's kind of an even fight. And Team Liquid's like, we don't want an even fight. Arrow comes through, and all of the heroics are back up. Johanna's short cooldown, making a big difference there. And they get the pick onto a Nubrak on the retreat, and they send Greymane back. Bear in mind, Dignitas wanted to fight there, even though it was even fight, because they had catapult pressure bottom. They got 36% on the core. Middle keep ended up going down to the Webweaver. That was the most prepped lane, and is the lane that had no particular defenses by Dig. So it makes sense that the middle lane would go down. Now there's catapult pressure across the mid lane. And at this point, it just becomes neither... Like, Team Liquid had 2 turn-ins. Bear in mind, there's a scaling spike at 14 minutes. So even though Dignitas overall has more turn-ins at this point, Liquid has more powerful turn-ins. So the fact that they have a turn-in and Dignitas didn't, and they got the turn-in because Dignitas was all backed up, making sure their lanes were pushed out, is going to put them in a relatively good position. And Liquid knows that if they lose, they're going to get backdoored instantly. And Dignitas knows that if they lose, they're going to get, like, the core is open for both teams. We're in a state of the game where both teams can kill core relatively easily. So they have the night camp. They're pressuring up. I think they just want to... Liquid wants to end. They don't want to go any further into the game. At this point, so they pressure into mid instead of trying to open up, multiple lanes with the keep. Another really good decision by them. It shows a really strong understanding of Tomb. Tomb is sort of an EU special map. EU teams, for whatever reason, tend to have a better understanding of Tomb of the Spider Queen than other regions. And I think this is the right decision, just trying to end rather than trying to open up more of the map. Beautiful Unstoppable there, and the spread to deny the Hanzo arrow as the follow-up to Wabi's E. And as they lose the minion wave, they just leave. They're just out. They go top because the Web Weaver is still technically alive. And they need to constantly bring the fight to Dignitas. They don't want Dignitas to get in a situation where they're off the map and not visible. Dignitas does not have great core race, but they do have a bunker. And bunker can do surprising things to buildings. Boss is up. So Dig is checking the boss here, and Liquid's like, great, let's do boss. Let's fight over boss again. Because Liquid wants to fight. Like, they're in a position where their catapults are in a lot of trouble. They get the Johanna flank here. Snitch gets the jump over. The bunker goes down. And it's like, if Liquid gets the boss, that's a 21-minute boss, against a keep with no wall, they can probably end with that boss. So Dignitas has to go fight over the boss. And as long as they have to fight over the boss, Blaze gets picked off, Bunker was already used, Ancestral was already used, Snitch is back out. And then they don't go in for the 5v4 under keep. They don't have a wave. They just back up, and they get boss. And so, because Dig knows that this boss is very likely to end and they're going to have to fight over it, they fight over it even though it's, a 4v5. And then the game... And here's actually the insane thing. With Blaze, Li Ming, Hanzo, like all of this damage... And because they got the kill onto Arthas, and because they spent so much time chasing down Li Ming, which they didn't even get the kill, they actually managed to save the keep. That should just not have happened. Liquid not pushing there was a pretty substantial mistake. And they still aren't paying enough attention to bottom lane. This is still a lose condition for them. If they don't pay enough attention to bottom lane and keep it constantly pushed out, they're going to be in a lot of trouble. Now, Dignitas is the team that has turn in next. And so, Dignitas opts to invade here. Even though they have turn in next, if they just played slow, I think they win. Liquid decides to push up with a Night Camp. They steal Dignitas' Night Camp. I'm really surprised Dignitas didn't fight over that camp. But I guess they weren't really in a position to do so. They were kind of spread out. Blaze was pushing out top, wanting to make sure that there's no pressure on that top keep. And they just didn't position themselves to think about the knights. Now, double Night Camp is actually an enormous amount of damage. They have 2 catapults. They even have Army of the Dead. Catapults on bottom. That's going to take about a minute to kill core from 57% with the full shield. So they kind of have to back up. The arrow comes out, play of the game, so Snitch can catch up, and they're chasing. Catapults on core. This catapult actually spawned mid and aggroed. If this hadn't happened, I think they actually lose the game. That's not a consistent thing. Catapult, like, minions from other lanes aren't necessarily supposed to aggro on minions in other lanes, even if they're in your base. If that hadn't happened, I think they actually lose the game there. That was a subtle thing. Because those catapults would not have died, and they would have gotten like 2 or 3 more shots each, which is 15% of core pretty comfortably. So a little bit of random AI. And Team Liquid just hits their CC chain again there on both tanks when Bunker's down. Bunkers has amazing ability to save you from all sorts of things. So you can actually, if you hit it at the same frame that you get CC'd, it still goes off. And therefore you're in the bunker and you're safe. Very interesting decision making by Liquid. They definitely felt like they were out deciding things against Dignitas for the most part. I don't really think that is a Clown Fiesta. I actually think that is. I actually think of that game as Liquid having a better OODA loop. That's the way I thought of it when I watched it. OODA loops are really fascinating, by the way. OODA, if anyone wants to Google them. They were actually invented by a fighter pilot, American fighter pilot, and his nickname was, I don't remember his name, but his nickname was 50 Second his name, because in mock engagements he could beat anyone in 50 seconds. Mock fighter pilot engagements, he had an undefeated record. He could beat anyone in 50 seconds, and it was just because he knew what they were going to do and out thought them. It's really interesting. There's another question here. Game 3, forcing Zarya into Cassia seems bad. Forcing Zarya into Cassia is in fact bad. Yeah. I understand what Liquid was trying to do. They have Vikings, so they wanted to push comp. Greymane's really good at shoving. But Greymane sucks against Cassia. So, like, already here, they picked, like, this, the Cassia was picked up. They know it's in the Greymane. This should have been a mage. Doesn't matter what mage it is, honestly. It could be Chromie. It doesn't matter that it's bad at shoving. It just matters that you actually need to be able to kill Cassia. If you can't kill Cassia, you're fucked. Cassia does enough damage to qualify as a hyper carry. I think Cassia and Hanzo are really the only two heroes whose numbers are absurd enough to really be hyper carries in the current iteration of the game. I think like Vala is not quite up there after her nerfs. It's just she's just not quite there. But the problem is Cassia is very counterable. All you need is lots of ability damage and she dies. But yeah. And then the question after that actually concerns the same game. Thoughts on Team Liquid's Game 2 draft from the Gul'dan ban? This is actually Game 3, but since Gul'dan was not banned in the previous game, I assumed that this was the game the question was actually meant for. Oh, Gul'dan was banned in this game. I mean, Gul'dan's just lots and lots and lots of wave clear, and he has Horrify. That's the big thing. If you think of Gul'dan, the two things you should think of when you're thinking of Gul'dan are Horrify and wave clear. Do you need wave clear? Then Gul'dan is pretty good. And do you need some sort of large team fight CC? Horrify is really good at anti-dive because everyone tends to dive in on the same target and then they all get horrified in different situations. The man who cracked on a Murray, love to see you still active in odds. Blizzard's still mad at me about that. So yeah, anytime you're banning Gul'dan, you're essentially banning wave clear. Whenever you have a macro comp like Vikings, banning wave clear makes a lot of sense because if you can clear a wave, then you can rotate to wherever the 4-man is and have an even have a brief 4v4. Like say they're pushing bottom and Gul'dan anchors mid and Gul'dan clears the wave really fast. Gul'dan can then come down and do things for 15 seconds before he has to go back and catch the wave. Wave clear enables rotations. This is just a fundamental premise of HOTS. Wave clear enables rotations. If you're on a rotation-centric map, you probably want a lot of wave clear. The best example of this, of course, is Team the Spider Queen, where we've seen comps literally win just by clearing waves. Like, they didn't fight. They were just like, let's just clear waves and win the game eventually. And the team was like, great. And they did it, and it worked. Like, wave clear enables rotations. If you don't want to rotate, you don't need wave clear. If you want to rotate, you need wave clear. Really, really, really simple. We're actually going to talk about that a little bit later because there's another question about a different game that it applies to. I'm pretty sure there'll be a lot of questions about second game Dig versus Team Liquid. Can you point out Dig's mistakes? Was it in draft already? Lack of wave clear? Thank you for doing your work. It was not. So we went over that game, but it wasn't a lack of wave clear. Both teams had enough wave clear. Wave clear is not a zero-sum game. Wave clear is a question of the map and how much wave clear your opponents have. If you have less wave clear than your opponents and they have a lot more wave clear than you do, they never have to fight you because you're always behind in rotations. You have to give up soak to try and kill their wave clear to catch up. But Liquid has, Greymane's not great wave clear. It's only okay. It's not like instantaneous. It takes like him 5 to 6 seconds to clear a wave. And that's assuming he has all his cooldowns. Devil's Trap, thank you for the follow. Arthas is okay wave clear. Johanna, after her rework, is just okay wave clear. Chromie can have good wave clear at 7, but she gives up a lot of her kill pressure to do it. She can't go Dragon's Eye, she has to go Mobius Loop. Malf really doesn't have wave clear anymore. So they have like 2.5. Let's say they have 2 wave clear heroes. Like let's count the fours. The 4 halves is halves, and it's just like 2. Wubby Blaze is just one of the best wave clear heroes in the game, straight up. So that's just like a 1. And then at 4, Hanzo has decent wave clear, so that's 4.5. Rhaegar is a half. So it's like 2 wave clear heroes to 2 wave clear heroes roughly, and Blaze makes all the difference there. If Dignitas had like something weird like Thrall instead of Blaze, they would have just gotten that wave cleared, and it would have been silly. Or pick your no wave clear soul winner of choice. There are quite a few of them. So it's not that they didn't have enough wave clear. It was really Dignitas was ahead the entire game, and then didn't vision that top boss and gave up a kill, and that allowed Liquid to get 20. And at that point, both teams needed to actually win a fight to come back. And Dig just, for whatever reason, had slightly worse team fight. It will say that a stacked Chromie, Chromie had a lot of stacks, a lot of Q stacks. That game is very difficult to deal with in the very, very late game. And Dignitas doesn't really continue to scale. In fact, Li Ming scales at 3%, even though her heroics scale at 5%. Her basic abilities all scale at 3%. So the later the game goes, the worse Li Ming actually becomes. There's no really huge power spikes at 20 for anyone on Dignitas' team. Whereas Liquid gets indestructible. They get better. They get more than double the healing from Army of the Dead from ghouls. The cleave from Greymane on his level 20 is very scary, and Chromie just continues to scale regardless because of stacks. So Liquid had a better late game comp and managed to get there. Is the lower game chart bugged? I don't believe so. A noob rewind is pretty big. I'll take it. I'll take a noob rewind. A noob rewind is okay. But it's not the same level of scaling as Team Liquid's comp. Heroes Hearth versus Esports. Heroes Hearth Esports versus Simplistic Game 1. Why did Falstad, Arthalon take Epic Mount, but Tahaka, McIntyre didn't take Apex Predator? It's not a zero-sum game, right? So this is the game in question, and it's on Towers of Doom. This is not a zero-sum question. It's not like, oh, reduced cooldown coolballs are good regardless of what hero it's on. Epic Mount basically competes with Wind Tunnel for Falstad. You can make an argument for Nexus Frenzy, kind of. But really it's Wind Tunnel or Epic Mount are the two really competitively viable. Epic Mount gives you escape potential because it's such a short cast time. You can actually use it mid-fight to just fly out of a bad situation. It also gives you more ability to do gust plays because you can fly in and gust. And then Wind Tunnel gives you potential to just secure altars for free on the case of Towers of Doom, or stick a team against a wall. Like if you stuck a team against a wall with Wind Tunnel and then they got Hanzo Arrow, that'd be a really good combination, right? That's really good. But in the Haka's case, it competes with Contagion, and Contagion can just single-handedly win games. For those of you who don't know, Contagion is the talent that causes Dahaka's heroic isolation to spread to every person in range that gets hit. And actually, let me check the range real quick on the spread, because I don't have it memorized. I believe it's 4. But I could be wrong. 3.5. It's 3.5. So late game fight, lots of poking. There is actually a fight where isolation with Contagion actually just basically wins. Not that one. That was a single target. Anyone else was in range. Yeah. Contagion actually did lose us a game. In point of fact. Oh, maybe? No, it wasn't this set. It was a different set. We only got single target ones. But go back and watch GFE versus LFM Game 5 on Infernal Shrines. And we basically lost the game because of clumping and how powerful Contagion is. Not a zero-sum game. Also, Essence Clause is very good on Dahaka. Like, people have a tendency to look at talents in a vacuum. It's like, you gotta understand what you're giving up. There's some talents in the game that are actually pretty good. They're just so much worse than the competing talent at the tier that you never pick them. It's not that the talent's bad, it's that what you're giving up is too good. You can't evaluate things in a vacuum. You have to evaluate things by the opportunity cost of not giving it to take other talents. Falstad gives up almost nothing to take Epic Mount in a lot of cases. But Dahaka taking Apex Predator, you give up a lot. Why were there several picks of the Blazes Incinerator Gauntlets this weekend on Battlefield of Eternity and in D-Shire? It's better wave clear. That's really what it comes down to. That's the level 7 talent on Blaze that causes his auto attacks to auto-ignite all his oil spills, which saves you mana, by the way, because you don't have to queue your oil spills anymore. And you do additional bonus damage with your auto attacks to mercenaries and minions, and I believe monsters. As well. I think it's the trifecta. So it's an EU thing in particular. It's starting to spread to other regions a little bit. But basically, it gives you wave clear. And I'm going to go over how important wave clear is, especially on Blaze, a little bit later, because someone asked a specific question about one of the games where that was done. So, but basically, wave clear is good. And BOE and D-Shire, like Dragonshire is a rotational map. Wave clear enables rotations. Makes sense to take it on D-Shire. On BOE, it's a little bit stranger. But Hero South versus Simplistic in 3 was giving bot fort and Tooth as a keep all the correct call. Yes. So Simplicity invades the camp, gets the snowball. 10-8. The correct call here is easy. You need to be soaking all 3 lanes because you're not 10 and the enemy team is 10. If you fight them and they're 10 and you're not, you should just lose and die. Therefore, you let them have the fort. Ideally, Greymane should be top here because Malthael can't shove for shit. The only way to catch up in experience at this point is to trade buildings. If Greymane's top, he can shove and kill the wall basically for free. And they need to be soaking. So Blaze is soaking mid. Blaze can actually double soak. So if they want to do a 4-man defense, Malthael should be here and Blaze should be double soaking. But HGC just doesn't do this right. It really seems like they're panicking at this point. Simplicity honestly shouldn't have backed off there. They have a global and they have a really strong 4-man shove. They still had giants alive. Uther can heal the giants. They could have just stayed there and potentially gotten a keep. At a minimum, they could have finished off the wall. They could have set themselves up to guarantee 13. They decided to get the Dragon Knight with their advantage while they still have it. They're a quarter of a level. Hero's Hearth is now a quarter level away from 10. They do eventually get it. But they could have just gotten bot keep. They had no real reason to leave there. But from Heroes Hearth's perspective, yes, that was absolutely the correct decision. There's no way you fight pre-10 against a 10 team. Above game, the 3-range 1. Comments? Oh, that's... So, HHG versus Simplicity, game 4. And the question was... No. I clicked on the wrong thing. Question here was why Hammer On for ETC. ETC has 3 talents at level 7. Echo Pedal, which does a very small amount of area damage every time you use an ability, but then does bonus damage to mercenaries and minions, which makes it really, really good for wave clear and taking camps. Hammer On is kind of like it's a ×2 follow through. So the next 2 abilities you do get bonus auto attack damage. And then he has Pinball Wizard, which if you slide someone and then I think the grace period is 1.25 seconds, W them, you get bonus damage on your W. It's quite a lot of bonus damage, actually. So Hammer On is not generally ever taken on ETC unless you take the level 1 talent that causes you to heal while your guitar solo is active for a percentage of the damage that you do from auto-attacking, because it has a nice synergy with that. And it's good on maps like Sky Temple and Battlefield of Eternity because of the increased single target damage times the increased sustain you get. Particularly on Sky Temple, you can have an offlane ETC who has stage dive, and he's just like grabbing temples, and then he stage dives into the fight for double tank compositions. So as the main tank, I really don't think you should ever take Hammer On as ETC. The only real benefit is that you don't have to W to get burst, and it is technically more damage to heroes than Echo Pedal is. So if you really can't coordinate with your team to be like, I'm Wing here, so you can W things into things to get the benefit of Pinball Wizard, then you go Hammer On. In that sense, it's not necessarily a bad talent for the ETC. It's like training wheels for the ETC's team, because booping things into things ought to be an expectation. Like, you should be communicating that you're going to boop on comms, and people should know what the distance is like. That said, I really don't think that pro players should be taking Hammer On ETC outside of the offlane ETC with the level 1 talent that increases his healing. Pro's taking a TL game because on BOE. That's fair. Echo Pedal is just so much more wave clear that I think you should take Echo Pedal in every map that's not 2-lane, no matter what. Certainly, if Echo Pedal applied to monsters, it would always be the default on shrines. But above game, the three range one. Comments? I actually predicted when Matheo was first released that triple range would end up working as a counter to Matheo. This is the second time I've been proven correct in that prescient prediction, because Tempo Storm actually ran triple ranged against a Matheo and won with it when Matheo was first released. Matheo was absolutely broken. That was pre-nerf Matheo. Basically, Matheo is really good at dealing with clumps, and melee heroes tend to clump. Even if it's just 2 of them, like Matheo can get a lot of value. But if you have Blaze and he has Bunker, like you have an unkillable frontliner, and then you have 3 range that are just like ping, 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 and you have double support, which Tassadar and Malfurion certainly qualify. You just need a really heavy sustain healer and then some other way of dealing with burst. You're going to be in good shape. I do not normally recommend triple range, and I actually would call this quad ranged, because these are also ranged heroes. SSG versus Team Fighting Game 3, why even contest the Shrine for more than 30 down after clearing camps from Tom? Corchis with incoming Punisher. This is a lot of questions about Infernal Shrines. Doesn't Maev deal with clumps as well, just better? A lot better. Maev's not allowed in pro play yet, so I have no comment. Wait. No, SSG versus Team Freedom, not Team 12 versus Team Freedom. I'm insane, guys. Literally keep clicking on the wrong match. Okay. So, bottom shrine, about to spawn. Freedom is hovering around bottom. They know the catapults have to be cleared out, so they're looking for someone. They actually get the jump here on someone who's rotating through, ill-advisedly. They actually almost get the kill onto Equinox, but even if they... he had Blinded by the Light, he does not have Indestructible. But they managed to make it work. They kill the Abathur clone, a little bit of free experience. So Abathur clone down, go for the throat down, Sanctification down, Dragonblade and Beat are both up. Odin and Alex Straz's Heroic are both available, so it's a relatively even trade in terms of damage. And at this point, against Odin, there's really, like, Odin gets popped. There's really no chance to win the shrine at this point. So we have Beat, Dragon Blade. Lutano is forced to just completely back out of here, though. Like, there's so much area damage from this composition with the Gul'dan, the Johanna, the Arthas. You just can't actually contest the shrine. Oh, it just wasn't on cooldown yet. So it doesn't actually go on cooldown. I'm just crazy. It doesn't actually display it on cooldown until after she's landed. So I was looking at her while she was... Yeah, she doesn't show until Dragon ends. So they have the Greymane. So there's two questions. There's a question here. Is Freedom backdooring... Like, they shouldn't have fought over the shrine at all, in my opinion. There's no reason to fight over the shrine. All of their cooldowns would have been available if they had just backed up and used their cooldowns to defend at keep. Actually sacrifice the keep. This is a very late game Punisher. So they're backdooring core. This forces everyone to back up, and I think they actually should just leave at this point. All right, they have the speed from Tyrael, the level 7 speed in particular. See the instant. This is actually, by the way, the correct prioritization. If you ever have a core rush and there's a Greymane, kill the Greymane first. So they get the shrink on him. Everyone's focusing on Yoda. They get the fear. Genji ends up going down. Everyone else manages to back up. Nazmus with the clone. I think they should have backed up sooner. Like, as soon as the back started. Because Space Station Gaming has to run all the way from their base to here to push with the Punisher. That's a long distance. Whereas if Freedom just gets out and backs, and they have speed from Lucia, they have speed from Tyrael, they have movement abilities on Genji. Like, they can all get out very, very quickly. And then just back. And then they're instantly there to defend against the Punisher. They're in their base. All right, look at how long it takes. So it's 24:38 is when Johanna leaves base. So it takes her 12, 16, 17, 18, 19. It takes Equinox 19 seconds to get here, base to base. Almost 20. If they hadn't lost the Genji, this Punisher would just already be dead. So this would have been no wave, fight under keep, 5v5. If they just backed immediately as soon as they had saw the backs. And there's a question about this. So that was that question. I don't think they should have fought. They should have just tried to backdoor core, force the backs, and then defend and Punisher. Add on to the above. So SSG on the core rush here actually has a really good chance of just winning the core rush. The biggest thing is they need to split their damage. So first, they need to group up and get the Holy Arena Sanct. They need to get the Holy Arena Sanct. It's actually... I'm crazy. Rewind. Back up. Also, Team Freedom didn't Holy Arena Sanct on their core call earlier. If they were going to go all in on core, they should have done that. Anyway. They immediately focus on the Tychus, Big Red Button. Big Red Button does a lot of damage. But notice the damage are both kiting in this direction. Both of the damage are kiting this way. So Casanova and Jay Shrite are both kiting in this direction. They try to get the Alex, but the Alex has her heroic. She just gets off. Keeps trying to heal the Casanova. Imagine what this game would look like if Casanova had kited this way to the left and Jay Shrite had kited to the right. And so the damage, the two things that were actually hurting core, were split. And imagine that the tanks took up the middle ground and just slowed Team Freedom down. So Jay Shrite, actually, Jay Shrite is hugging core here so that he doesn't get hit by the middle keep. And Lucio actually boops him into middle keep so that he's going to start getting targeted by it. And Jay Shrite stands there and tries to get as much damage as he can onto core in the process. So the core ends at 11%. 11%. Core stops scaling at 20 minutes, so the core is its max health that it's ever going to be in a game. Imagine if Casanova had kited this way. If Casanova kites this way, he gets off the exact same amount of damage. But if Jay Shrite is way over here, and Casanova's way over here, and Arthas and Johanna are both here to prevent the enemy team from collapsing on Jay Shrite. Jay Shrite gets an extra 3 to 4 seconds alone with the core. Can Gul'dan do 11% of core damage in 3 to 4 seconds? The answer is yes. Yes, you can. So they were cutting together, but when you're on core, you actually want to split. If you want to see good examples of this, just go look at any of Fnatic's backdoor calls. They split their entire team around core every time. Like, everyone is on a different part of the core. They group up for really important heroics, like Sound Barrier or Sanct, and then they immediately spread. That actually would have made the difference if Casanova had gone left and Jay had gone right. SSG opted for map pick when they had the choice. Is this an SSG particular thing, or do they think the meta is evolving to the point where we'll see more mix-up between map and first pick? I think there's some people, like, it's a mix. There's some teams that are more confident from second pick because they understand certain maps better. So, like, I'd rather be second pick on a map I know than first pick on a map I don't know. It's also just a question of how many powerful heroes are in the meta. If there's lots of powerful combinations of heroes in the meta, like, let's say Tracer Malf is a really good combination, right? If the enemy team first picks Tracer, you can take Malfurion with another hero that's good with Malfurion. Like, you can take Malfurion Genji, and then the enemy team can't take Tracer Malf, so now they have to have another support for Tracer. So if there's lots of powerful combinations of the game, second pick can be really strong. If there's lots of single heroes that are just game-winning and it doesn't matter what you pair them with, then first pick is stronger because you can ban one, the enemy team has to ban one, you take one, you're in an awkward position. It's just a question of where teams feel more comfortable in the draft. And there's been a mix. It used to be that first pick was just better. First pick was just better in a lot of cases. And it's when you're trying to hide strats or build synergies, specific synergies in your composition, where second pick is advantageous. And generally, drafts like that are map specific. So the fact that you have second pick but you get map is a bonus, not a con. I don't think the meta is evolving in that way. I just think that some teams feel more comfortable in some ways. I'm actually have another question about the series. Game 4, why turn in when they could have fought pre-16? Which is kind of a weird question. All right, so Freedom versus Space Station Gaming. Freedom, nice, they just turned in. All right, so Space Station Gaming is on boss, and Freedom is actually turning in bottom with Tastar. I believe he has Soul Turn, and he does, and they immediately rotate up and start to get it. So this is another example of level thinking. Freedom wants to turn in because it brings the fight to the enemy team side of the map and gives them a chance to get structures and start catching up in experience. Space Station Gaming realizes that fighting pre-16 isn't really good for them. They don't really want to fight over turn-in, but they don't want the turn-in to get a lot of value. What can they do to negate the value of turn-ins? The answer on Tomb of the Spider Queen is get camps. If you get camps, the enemy team gets less value from their turn-in, so they just immediately go to boss. They don't push with the boss. They just clear the wave. And they start dealing with the turn-in. This is going to get them 16 and is going to negate the value. Ask the question of why didn't Freedom force the fight? Well, the answer is Siege Giants, Merc Camp. Like, all of Freedom's lanes are pushed in. They have to clear their lanes. This is why wave clear is so critical on Tomb. You want to punish a Genji on Tomb of the Spider Queen? Draft wave clear, because Genji doesn't have any. Genji's assistance on Tomb of the Spider Queen is he has to kill the wave clear heroes on the other side of the map. The other side. If you don't kill the wave clear heroes, you can't win. Right? Jaina Blaze Greymane, a lot of wave clear. Tassadar, maybe Mouth, is the only wave clear from Freedom. Freedom got dumpstered this game because they just didn't draft wave clear. It's actually like, if you don't draft wave clear on Tomb, you deserve to lose. It's a very specific map. It does one. You have to do one thing really well on Tomb, or you have to absolutely guaranteed be able to kill the other team constantly. Like, you have to be able to kill them. If they have Azul, Xul, Gul'dan, Ragnaros, whatever, like, they have a comp that's all wave clear. You have to be able to kill them. Not like some of the time. Like, every time you engage on them has to result in a kill. And even then, you'll still slowly fall behind if their wave clear really is that much better. That's just the way Tomb works. The serious simple drafting mistakes, underestimation, or a combo of the two. I think drafting mistakes was definitely an issue. Obviously on Tomb, they didn't draft enough wave clear. Underestimation was probably a factor. I think Freedom felt like they had a relatively easy match going in. But Space Station is an inconsistent team, in the sense that they have everyone on their team is capable of performing at a very high level, and sometimes they do, and that's really good for them. Space Station could be a really good team. I think that some of them get bored. They had that role swapping in their series against us, and they realized that was a really bad idea, and they immediately swapped back, and that was really strange. But like Jason and Tomster and Jay Shrite are all really good. Equinox is really good when he's trying. Equinox is one of the smartest guys in HOTS in the NAC, but like he wanted to retire. he only stayed to make sure his team had a good roster and to help us friends out. So Dig versus Team Liquid Game 3. Why no charge strikes for the Supreme Anti-Siege? It's actually a really good question, and I don't have a good answer. Because I think you go charge strikes in this scenario 100% of the time. This is the game. Cassie did not go charge strikes. She went for Q build. Charge strikes is so good here because it puts so much pressure onto the 4-man whenever they try to siege something. You just hit charge strikes and everyone's suddenly very, very chunked. Malfurion even has a hard time keeping up with that level of damage. Charge strikes is so good. Charge strikes is literally one of the best anti-siege talents in the game. I don't understand why it was not picked there when that was a sieging composition. Although Q-Build has been gaining in popularity since the number tweaks. Maybe he just wanted the more consistent damage in teamfights. And he felt that since Zarya couldn't kill him anyway, it didn't really matter if he had charge strikes or not. And then, same game, why wasn't Mathael drafted against the triple warrior opener? I mean, Mathael's not really good into Tyrael, because Sanct can negate Tormented Souls, and so can Bunker, actually. So Mathael's good against Dahaka. Triple Warrior doesn't necessarily mean has no tools to deal with percentage-based damage. It's not really what that means. Tormented Souls is good against melee heroes because of the clumping problem. It's not good against Sanct, it's not good against Bunker. So Mathael would not get a response. But I really do think Team Liquid was just focused on their draft. They decided, I think they went into the draft thinking we're going to pick Vikings, and they picked Vikings, and they went in the draft thinking they were going to pick Cassia or Zarya, and they picked Zarya. And it didn't really matter what the enemy team's response was. They just wanted to do a certain strat. Even Dahaka's isolation, which needs a response, also true. So yeah, there's lots of warriors that shit on Mathael, even though Mathael has a lot of percentage-based damages. It's not a zero-sum game that way. Fnatic versus Dignitas. What do you think of the three main reasons that Fnatic is that much weaker after roster changes than Dignitas? So this is a pretty specific question. So let's do this one position at a time. Right? One position at a time. So Fnatic has Breeze, who is easily one of the top tanks in the world, versus JPL, who is easily one of the top tanks in the world. JPL is, in a lot of ways, one of the most thoughtful players in the game. His plays are not flashy all the time. Like, JPL has some flashy plays. You can go find clips of him. But the way he's just extremely consistent is almost unmatched. JPL may be the most consistent tank in many ways, and he's really good at outplaying other tanks. The he'll hook Tyrael's swords. He'll like, Tyrael's probably gonna use that sword about now, and then I'll hook the sword. It's like perfect. So Breeze and JPL comparable. I think JPL is smarter than Breeze, but Breeze may be a little bit better mechanically. But Breeze has certain heroes he's better at, whereas JPL is just really consistent across his entire roster. Bad Benny. Bad Benny was a warrior main, and is not really adapted very well to the solo laning role. It's a different mindset. You have to play significantly differently. And it just takes a long time. He's had 3 months, and we haven't really seen anything exceptional out of him in the offlaning role. Wubby is the second best offlaner in the world. No question. Wubby is the second best offlaning in the world. He's also one of probably the top 4 or 5 professional drafters in Heroes of the Storm. JPL can draft, doesn't like doing it. Wubby can draft, loves doing it. So Team Dignitas picked up a really smart player who was already one of the top in the world at their role to complement a really stable roster. They also picked up Poik, who is arguably one of the best, arguably the best mechanical player, really, in Europe, and just can play, like, everything. So, like, if you compare just those, like, Poik is the best mechanical player, best offlaner, best or second best tank. It's really hard to say where Zelia falls in terms of supports because we've only ever seen him play with Dignitas. But Zelia, you know, he already has the mindset of a support player because he played support in World of Warcraft in competitive arena. He was I think a holy priest main or something in threes. I don't even remember, but he has that mindset already of, oh, how do I keep my team alive, right? And he also has really good mechanics. So you have 5 players who are all really thoughtful about the game, can all approach the game from different perspectives. Because Zelia, even though he wasn't support main, was a top-level player, and he has a lot of understanding of the game from different perspectives because he played another role beforehand. You have top 1 or top 2 in 3, arguably 4 roles, depending on where you want to put Snitch. Snitch may be the best flex in EU in terms of just the number of heroes that you can play to a certain level. So Fnatic has, on average, on their team, less game knowledge, less mechanics, less perspective, less top-tier players by comparison. Dignitas is just a super team right now. It's really that simple. I love Smexy, I love Quacknix, I love Mene, you know, I love Breeze. Actually was a really big fan of Bad Benny's thing. Like, Bad Benny was one of the top 3 tanks in the EU before he role swapped. And he's not a good offlaner. Not yet, at least. I imagine he's working really hard at it, but it is a very complicated role. Offlaner may actually be the most game knowledge intensive role in the entire game. So the 3 main reasons are they know more about the game, they draft better, and they have better mechanics on average. Yeah, offlaning is... I actually miss doing going alone, guys. And actually, with the death of double support, going alone could make a comeback. Going alone may make a comeback, guys. Fnatic versus Game 2. Why did Fnatic pick Arthas over ETC? Not lose my tabs here. Fnatic versus Game 2. I think I actually have enough. I have enough interesting replays that I can bring back. Going alone, I'll probably have to do it the same thing at 11 on Wednesdays before scrims, but I'll probably start out with a Blaze solo laning special. But I have to find the right replays for it. I can definitely start doing it next week because obviously we have a bye week. This weekend being the last week of HGC. I don't think I can do it out tomorrow, but next week going alone. Super secret announcement. So the question is, why Arthas over ETC here? And the answer is, I really don't know. ETC is strictly better into Diablo. ETC is really good with Blaze. It's really good with Hanzo. It's really good with Kael'thas. Arguably, Arthas is slightly better on Shrines. Arthas is designed to counter low mobility auto attack heroes, essentially. And Dignitas in the draft has Malfurion, Diablo, Gul'dan. A good Diablo will shit on Arthas. Like, it's not close. A good Diablo can actually 100 to 0 Arthas by himself post 16. Because of the percent base damage. Like, once the quest is finished on the level 13 talent and he gets the double hit, it's actually, like, it's such an insane amount of damage. I know pro players who haven't played against good Diablos who think Arthas is good into Diablo, but Breeze plays Diablo. Breeze knows that you can shit on an Arthas with Diablo, so I really don't understand why they picked Arthas here. I really don't. This is one of those things where I'm talking about Fnatic's drafting, and I'm just like, Dignitas is better at drafting. They first picked Diablo, and Fnatic picked 0 counters and picked 3 heroes that suck into Diablo. Like, they had all that information, and they were like, whatever. Okay. And this is one of the beautiful things about Wubby's drafting, is Wubby will pick heroes that may not seem like great first picks, and then the entire draft just works because he built a composition that makes sense. You know, if Fnatic had gone Tychus Leoric, Wubby would have had a response. Although Tychus Leoric would have actually been a really good response to this opening. And it's just one of those things about drafting. A lot of people approach drafting from this idea, and this is how everyone approaches drafting when they start out. I think these heroes are strong in the meta, so I'm going to pick these heroes. And occasionally you'll see comps where it's like, oh man, that team has all S tier heroes. Oh my god, they lost. What the fuck? And the answer is, well, those heroes are good, but they don't have wave clear. They don't have boss control on Cursed Hall. They don't have merkability on they don't have this, they don't have that. And then you start realizing that you can pick strong heroes, that's fine. But then you have to build an entire composition around making sure that your team can play the map well. It has enough wave clear. Yeah, I also thought Arthas is quite good versus Diablo. Yeah, he's not. I mean, it'd be nice if he was, but he's not. Actually, let me see if I saw this bookmark. Super secret site. So Arthas versus Diablo's win rate in pro play is 63.6% overall. But I'm gonna do this. I'm gonna limit it to just Europe, and it goes down to 50. Like, it's actually even. And then on Infernal Shrine, specifically in Europe, whew, only 3 games. But it's actually, I believe I can actually filter this by different patches, too. This is a website that someone made for me to scrape Master League win rates. It's actually pretty cool. But it's a skill matchup. There are actually a lot of... I could have said the filter's better for that, but I wanted to give like a quick example. There's actually a lot of skill matchups in HOTS where at the lower end, one hero wins, and at the higher end, the other hero wins. And it can make conversations really difficult. I was talking to someone about soloing the other day, And there's a lot of matchups that Malthael just dumpsters in pro play. And this was, someone on an open team. And they were like, we have a good, easy time tying that matchup. And I'm like, that might be true. But it's just different. So in pro play, with a really good Diablo should just destroy Arthas. Arthas is very vulnerable to displacements. And Diablo has a really big displacement. So if Arthas can't do anything, he doesn't walk up to you, right? So if Arthas walks up to you and you EQ him into your whole team and your whole team attacks him and he dies, his solution to that is to stand far enough back that he can't get E'd by the Diablo. But if he's that far back, is he doing his job as an Arthas? The way Cav is explaining this is like cooking a meal. You can read a recipe from a book and try to apply it, but if you experience, you can do much better. It's really important to look at drafts and understand what they're doing and not just the heroes that they picked. Fnatic versus Dig. Tracer and a monk. Just disrespect. Oh, that's... I don't think it was disrespect per se. So that was... this matchup. So first pick Abathur, Zelia, and JPL picked Tyrael, Malfurion. So it's not actually Tracer and a monk, right? Unless it was. Is there a different game? No. So it's actually Tracer and then Fnatic picked monk. It's not really True, but his team should follow up, right? And with Army. Army is vulnerable to lots of things. Like, the ghouls have health bars. They can actually just be killed. Like, Rag will kill Army. Also, you can't hit R if you're stunned, silenced. So, generally speaking, Diablo's not drafted by himself. He's drafted with some kind of lockdown composition that can secure kills. Like, if you get Diablo comboed and Gul'dan E'd, and you're dead. So Gul'dan's another good example. Lots of area damage. Gul'dan can actually kill Army. Like, Malthael into Arthas is kind of an interesting skill matchup because before it was, you wanted to time Tormented Souls around Arthas popping Army so that A, you got more healing off of Tormented Souls because there were more targets, but B, you negated Arthas's ult with your own because he can't heal off of Army if the ghouls are all dead. There's lots of ways of countering Army on Arthas. Army is an incredibly impactful heroic that allows Arthas to soak up a shit ton of damage. But smart teams will just fucking kill the ghouls, and then Arthas doesn't have an ult anymore. So I don't understand this question. Is this disrespectful? Because they picked Tracer, and then Fnatic picked Kharazim. Like, Kharazim's good into Tracer. I don't really see the disrespect involved here. Maybe I'm crazy. Murden's Haymaker. Are pros using the half-second animation time where the target is effectively stunned before they fly away to try and lock down mobile targets? If so, how much grief has this caused? I don't think pros are trying to do that. I really don't think anyone respects Haymaker in the pro scene on any map except Braxis, and that's just about point control. They're not trying to use it for lockdown. Could you please explain or give examples of what separates the top tier teams from the lower ones, regardless of region? Is it good coordination, execution, wave clear management, macro, micro? It's a little bit of everything, but I think the biggest thing is just game knowledge. Here's the thing. Here's actually a really simple, basic thing. Shot calling is hard. Like, babysitting your entire team and telling each of them what they should be doing at any given moment is just fucking impossible. You can't play your hero well and be a good shot caller. We had a... You just can't do it. You can't play your hero well and babysit everyone else at the same time. You just can't do it. So the more game knowledge everyone on your team has in terms of what their hero is capable of and what their hero should optimally be doing in a given composition, like the more people you have in your team that are smart and really understand your draft and what its job is, the less shot calling your shot caller has to do and the better their individual play becomes. So you want everyone to always be on the same page about what they're doing. You want everyone to know what everyone else is doing, so you need really good communication. Comms are probably the biggest, like game knowledge and comms are the biggest differences between good teams and bad teams. Because if everyone has game knowledge, everyone knows what everyone else is doing because they understand what their roles are. And if everyone has comms, then everyone knows what you're supposed to be doing when you're doing things together as opposed to separately. And they know if you're not supposed to be doing something because that person's going to be late and they're just not there. But like the easy answer in a lot of ways is drafting. Drafting separates really good teams from average teams because drafting is so complicated in Heroes of the Storm. And teams with a really good, like a bad team with a good drafter will beat good teams with a bad drafter in a good number of games. The number of times you can win just because you outdrafted your opponent is actually very high in Heroes of the Storm if your execution levels are like anywhere close to each other. Not necessarily like, I think if you like if you had diamond players with a good drafter against Masters players with a bad drafter, I think the diamond players would win like 70-80% of the time. But even that is still technically game knowledge, right? It's just the game knowledge of one person instead of the game knowledge of the entire team. The thing that really separates top teams from lower teams, like the thing that separates Dignitas, is that everyone on their team has really high game knowledge. The thing about Fnatic's old roster was that everyone on their team had really high game knowledge. Team 12 versus Team Freedom Game 2. What is this Clown Fiesta draft? So I've been looking at this question for a while now. In prep, I went and looked at this question. Team Freedom versus Team 12 Game 2. And I'm just like, what is clowny about this draft? The only thing weird about this draft is that Stitches does not have a follow-up CC. That's it. That's the only thing weird about this draft. Generally speaking, when you draft Stitches, you want a follow-up CC. Technically, Hook into Boop back is like an okay follow-up. It's a little dangerous. But their comp is it's a well-known comp. It's a variation of the kidnap comp, the milk carton. It's called fast food. And you gorge and run away. And then you guarantee a kill. Kidnap comps are better on Towers of Doom than on any other map. So I don't really understand the question. Why is Team 12 just inting one by one? Alright, this is not as bad as it looks. This is clearly just a miscommunication in comms. But, so 11 to 12. Freedom invades Team 12's bottom camp. So they force their sappers in. Let's actually even go back even further. They force their sappers in. These sappers are up. Team Freedom's like, great, let's go get them. This is insane because Team 12 has a global top, but Freedom has a Mathael who has Pale Horse. And he was already mid catching that soak, so this is gonna, even with the stage dive in, this is gonna be a full 5v5. The stage dive hits nothing. Stukov has control of the point. They don't really int in 1v1. In fact, they're all just sort of on their way out, and then resets happen because Genji's a balanced hero. So bear in mind that Team, like, this fort's already dead. Team 12 doesn't have an escape point, so they had to like decisively win that fight. The stage dive was late compared to when Tyrael went in, and it was just, call it 4 seconds, maybe 3 seconds of miscommunication, but that's enough to lose a fight. Why do pro players keep dying to mid-keep on influence? Because they don't kite in the right directions. It's just, I went over that, but it's so tilting. Game 4. Same series. And this is a very silly. Why did Goku take new habits? It's this level 1 talent. I realize I have to switch perspective. Why did Goku take new habits at level 1? New habits, for those you don't know, grants you unstoppable. So there's slows and there's one knockback, but there's no stuns or roots unless you count the protector. The other level 1 talents on Blaze are very strong. Giving them up actually hurts a lot. So the answer is I don't know, and it was a bad decision. Why were the teams rotating between mid-bot and their solo laners were top? Also, why were team... Okay, so Team 12 put 2 people inside the mech. That's just a bad decision. Don't put 2 people inside the mech. Well, actually, on the new patch, put 2 people inside the mech. And now HGC is going over to the new patch, so that advice no longer applies. But prior to that, don't do it. But the teams who've been making that mistake will have a head start on the map. I don't know. But the basic question here is, bottom lane is the solo lane on Volskaya because it's harder to gank. So generally your solo laners are down here. However, there's something called swap laning, or off. I don't like the term off laning because off laning already means something else. But there's a concept called swap laning. If you have a losing matchup or a difficult matchup, what if you just didn't put your hero in that lane and instead put them in a different lane? Also, Blaze has enough wave clear to double soak fairly effectively. So they put Blaze top because they really didn't want him against a Leoric with a hat. Blaze can probably win against Leoric, but anyone with a hat can probably win a lane against almost anyone else. Like, the hat is a big advantage. Also, the turret camps are bottom, and the turret camps are really, really valuable. So Arthas is anchoring bottom here. But eventually they're going to get to a point where Team 12 can actually have Blaze be rotating between these lanes and getting the double soak, and they can 4-man bottom and control both turret camps. And that'll get them ahead in experience. The turret camp and the healing camp both give a lot of bonus experience. So ideally on Volskaya, you want to be able to control them, and if that means having a double soaker and then a 4-lane bot, it's really, really strong. And you can see Blaze is just double soaking. Clear the wave, rotate, clear the wave, rotate. Notice how far the lane is pushed up. Like, this is dying to towers right now. Notice he has to clear the wave here at the gate. Right? Turns out that out wave clearing your opponent is pretty good. That's why. Solo lane bottom is for non-rotational heroes, but if you have the ability to double soak, you actually want to swap your lanes. And then Team Freedom, you did it because Team 12 did it. They matched the Leoric to the Blaze. Does anybody play some of the AoE Clown Fiesta comps because they can't execute tank killing standard as well? I think we play because it's hard to play against, honestly. It's really straightforward. LFM versus Team Tempestorm Game 3 at the Shrine fight, 14 minutes in. Should Figgy get fed? Yes. So I actually went and looked at this, and this is actually a good question, and the answer was yes, you should feed. Sometimes when you have Uther or Tyrael or even Leoric, it's okay to die for the value. So there's this whole fight going on, yada yada yada. Things happen, stuns, whatever. Figgy gets a little low. Time trap. Bear in mind, Leyline is a really good counter to Sanctification. So the fact that Leyline was used first is an invitation for the LFM Minceworts to just go, like, Q in and Sanct and go really hard here. And in fact, it's kind of what they do. They get the Q, they get the isolation on Cattle, but he gets protected and gets out. Beautiful Sanct. And right here, Figgy just runs away. But look at how low these heroes are. Right, his team's low, he's low. He doesn't have any mana. He doesn't have any more significant cooldowns. If he'd given his team one more E for the attack speed boost and the movement speed boost, and then just died and secured a kill with it, if he just traded out... Like, Greymane died right there. Cattle probably could have gotten killed with the Death's Explosion. It's possible that Figgy dying there turns that fight. Because they already traded, like they were already going to trade 1 for 1. If they could trade 2 for 2, and then Uther was alive, there used to be a composition where you would just draft Uther and Tyrael, and they would just go YOLO and burn all their cooldowns at the start of a fight, and then die, and then the ghosts would do enough damage that you would win the 3v5. Because they would just eat all these cooldowns. Which is still actually probably a viable strategy. But I think that that fight looks very different if he dies there. LFM versus Tempo Game 2. Chase after bot keep goes down to Tempo's DK. Basic question here is, how could LFM have played this better? But what about KDA? Dude, the fact that KDA is a stat that is being talked about now... Alright, back up. Nope. Wait, I was looking at the wrong side of the minimap. I was like, geez, this bot keeps taking forever to die. Turns out it was fine. Alright, so this is the fight. 11 to 13, down a talent tier. Blaze is double soaking, trying to catch up on experience, which is the correct call. I really like this is a 4v5. LFM doesn't want to fight here because they just want Blaze to be double soaking. If they bring Blaze in, then they've committed to forcing the fight down a talent tier. I don't necessarily think that's a good decision. I think that the safe call here is sack the keep, let Blaze double soak. It'll catch them up by almost a level. I think they would actually have closed a significant portion of the experience gap if they just given. So the cleanse comes out. They focus, like, Muradin's gone at this point, right? He actually, like, jumped out. He's burned a significant number of his cooldowns. They should have focused on Psalm the moment Psalm came out. Everyone should have just been like, kill Psalm. Everyone clicks on Psalm. At this point, Sanctification is up. Tyrael can queue forward and Sanct, like, here. And if you queue forward and Sanct here, I'm actually going to slow this down a little bit. Your entire team can chase into the Sanct, and it's a really big advantage. They get the beat first. They get the kill on a Psalm. They really don't want to let anyone leave here. They're splitting their fire. Cattle has healing static. So they split the damage. Cattle ends up living. You don't want to assume someone's going to die. Lucio and Tyrael, you should never get that Sanct off versus Uther, though. I mean, stun could have been on cooldown. I think stun was on cooldown, actually. Uther stunned for peel. LFM aware with the boop. And they are going to get the kill here, but they get the Divine Shield. June should go down here. But really, what happened is they just split focus a lot. And they have more speed, right? They have Tyrael speed. They have Lucio speed. Tyrael didn't go to level 7 speed talent, which I think is a mistake. I think you should always go to level 6 speed talent, honestly. But they even have Lunara with the hippity hop. Like, other than Genji, everyone should die. In fact, everyone does die. So I'm not sure how they could have played that better because they could have done it way back here. I don't think they needed to go all the way to mid to get all of those kills. But realistically, Genji's the only one who should get out in that scenario, and he was the only one who did. So all of them did not play that badly, but they could have played it better. And now we're going to move into the Korean questions. Ballistics versus KSV Game 2. Why does Ballistics keep doing this? Double support macro seems to be trivial to punish now. They keep doing this. Also Samura OP. So my only response to this is, yes, double support's currently pretty bad. It's very punishable on the macro front. But my answer is they've been doing it in scrims. And apparently it's been working in scrims, at least some of the time. That's my answer. So I was talking to some people who, you know, are more familiar with the Korean scene than I am. They actually live in Korea. Occasionally they get to watch scrims. And apparently Ballistics has been running double support in scrims. So this is a draft that they've been practicing. And Ariel's wave clear, you know, isn't the worst thing in the world. Tyrael can slow down pushes quite a bit with Justice for All. Uther can have good wave clear at 4 with the talent, which I don't think was actually taken this game, which is one of the things that really confuses me. I feel like if you're doing this comp, you should. Oh, he did take it. So like this isn't, and then EDC at level 7 has. Right. Yeah, I agree. I think Wave Illusion is the new go-to on Samuro, by the way. If you don't go Wave Illusion, you're really just saying, I'm not confident that I can mechanically complete this quest. You should just go Wave Illusion 100% of the time, though, in my opinion. After Samuro's rework, I think that's the best talent. And it's relatively easy to complete at this point. So that's basically... Ballistics was like, they don't have that much wave clear, but they have an Abathur. Abathur is like a free macro hero, and then they pick up Samuro, and Samuro does camps. Samuro split pushes. Samuro is just incredibly annoying. I think this could have been an Illidan, and it would have been almost the same scenario, to be honest. But Samuro is a lot safer than Illidan. Samuro has essentially 3 escapes, because you don't know if you're targeting the right clone, and then once you have Illusion Master, which I believe he does get this game. Yeah, once you have Illusion Master, you can send a clone up, and it acts as a pseudo global. And then he also has his stealth, and then 13 his stealth teleports as well. So it's just insanely good. And KSV understands that their win condition is just macro. Macro, 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 macro. And Ballistics can't secure kills, and they can't force fights, because KSV is okay giving up towers as long as they're getting buildings other ways. Q is also mini blink. That's true, because you can actually decide where you want to Q now. Like, Samuro's rework made him a lot more survivable, a lot more reliable in that sense. Look at him, like, this EDC cannot force Samuro off here. The only one that can actually threaten Samuro in the comp is Vala, and Vala has to be with the team. So that doesn't work. And then if you clone Samuro, he pushes even harder. And they got keep. So, yeah. The way to beat double support since the nerfs that remove their wave clear is just draft macro and macro. Kill buildings for free, because they won't be able to rotate in time to stop you. Wave clear enables rotations. If you don't have enough wave clear, you can't rotate. If you can't rotate, the enemy team gets to kill buildings for free, assuming they have a building killing hero. Samuro is a building killing hero. I think on towers, like on the actual front walls, Illidan and Samuro are pretty comparable. But once you start talking about the attack speed slow from forts, Illidan has to like weave in and out because of evasion, so he can only attack it when evasion's up. Whereas Samuro can just constantly attack it because he can make sure his clones are tanking. The question was, why does Ballistics keep doing this? Double support macro games, also Samuro OP. Samuro is indeed OP against heroes without enough wave clear, because he can just shove buildings in and win games. It's a really common mistake, honestly, in like Hero League, not to draft enough wave clear. So Samuro can be really good in Hero League at just shoving a lane. What went wrong for KSV in game 3 and 4? That's kind of an abstract question. Ballistics has Tyrael on Cursed Hollow. I would say that if Tyrael exists on Cursed Hollow and you don't have a solution to him just holy grounding bosses, you lost the game. Like the game's over. You're just done. The game's over. And it's not like quite that straightforward, because obviously there's, you know, execution things, but I think the big question that's really being asked here for this particular map is, how does Ballistics go from a relatively even game where they pick up Curse and end? Because they end here. This game is over. And I think the answer is they got the fort early with the consistent night camp pushes. So they were doing really well at killing buildings. Even though... So KSV had Dahaka, right? But Ballistics had wave clear, and they had the willingness to just shove lanes. What are the solutions then? The solution is don't draft double support. That's the solution. The solution is don't draft double support. Oh, what are the solutions to Tyrael? Leyline Seal, Cocoon, any sort of silence that can prevent the Sanct cast. But it's not enough to prevent the Sanct cast, right? Because if he perfectly positions the Holy Ground, you actually have to be able to kill him before he caps. Like, you actually have to be straight up. You have to be able to straight up kill him before he caps. You can actually place a Chromie Trap directly on the middle of the boss. And then if he Holy Grounds into it, but the boss can kill it. So you have to, like... Does Unstoppable let you move through Holy Ground? It does. You can also knock Tyrael off. So Expulsion Zone on Zarya will work. There's actually... If the enemy team has a cleanse, and they cleanse the Tyrael as he's casting Sanct, the only solution is Void Prison and Leyline. Those are the only things that work at that point. So you can actually make it so that there's only 2 heroes that can stop Tyrael from guaranteeing a boss. If you have a cleanse. Rhaegar, Brightwing, and Uther are the and Lily, technically, are the heroes that have cleanse. No, Unstoppable lets you move through Expulsion Zone. I'm crazy. Unstoppable lets you move through Expulsion Zone. It doesn't let you move through Holy Ground. Holy Ground's actually terrain, according to the game code. So you can't walk through terrain. There's very limited answers, is my point here. And you have to, like, build your draft around having them. Like, Medivh doesn't have a lot of wave clear, so you have to make sure that every other spot in your draft has a lot of wave clear. Would Maeve's Prism be an acceptable counter to Tyrael capping as well? If you could get the timing, yeah, it'd be fine. You just have to stasis him. I'm pretty sure that's also not vulnerable to cleanse. So, it's another good example. So Ballistics got boss. They prepped the mid lane. It was very pushed in. And they just push with the curse. They want to make sure they get the keep. They get the keep. They get mid keep. They get the 16 talent tier advantage. And from this point onward, the game is just basically over. Like, that's 1 curse, 3 keeps. Ballistics set that up so beautifully. At this point, as long as they don't, like, make a huge mistake where they get completely wiped, the game's over. I think that is the most valuable curse we have ever seen in a professional game. I don't think we've ever seen a curse that got 3 keeps. And it just came down to how they prepped their lanes before the curse. It's really what it came down to. All of their lanes were pushed. The one lane that wasn't pushed, it was because it had a boss in it. And they were just like, well, boss will get cleaned up by our minions if we just push, so let's just 5-man push. And because they had kills, that was like an acceptable thing to do. That is not the right VOD. Hey, Slapjack, are you here? That's not the right VOD. That is not Ballistics versus KSP Black Game 4. So I won't talk about Game 4 because I don't want to go look at the VOD manually. What did Dignitas do better than Fnatic? The difference in skill seemed vast, but what gave Dig such a massive edge? So I told you someone asked specific questions. I'm gonna give you guys a really boring reason that Game 1 was won. You guys ready for this? This is actually look at this aggro rotation by Wubby. He's just like clearing waves. Tracer's coming up, trying to gank the Soul Laner. The Soul Laner overextends, great. If not, whatever. Right. There's some movement, and then there's a 3-man rotation. Medivh's watching, anchoring. Tracer's going to grab mid soaks. This is 3-man. This is a 2-man anchor bottom with Medivh roam. Tracer's anchoring mid and roaming top. Wave clear from both teams, yada yada yada. And eventually it gets to a point Wubby is clearing. Notice, like, Wubby comes into this fight. He throws a single oil in the choke, seeing if they can look for a kill by slowing someone down. And he's like, no kill? Great. I'm going back to soaking. He literally casts 1 spell that isn't involved in soaking because he happens to be there. Medivh enables the rotation. Look at that portal. It enables the rotation for Wubby. From this point onward, Wubby double soaks basically 100% of the game. Tyrael doesn't have enough wave clear to match it. 0 kills. All you need to do to understand what is happening in this game right now is look at the minimap, the experience, and the kill counter. Neither team is getting any kills, so no sources of experience there. There's no other significant sources of experience other than structures, but neither team's getting structures. Both teams are just getting their camps. Both teams are going to kill the enemy team's camp and not let them get pushed in. But look at Blaze on the minimap. He's clearing the lane. You can see Tyrael and Uther like trying to interfere with him clearing. He's just like, no, that's not going to happen. Sorry. And he just leaves. And he's clearing. They're now half a level ahead. This is purely based on minion experience. They get the portal invade here, which is actually brutal. They get the bomb. By the way, this is a Poik thing. I encourage people who are learning to play Tracer to do more of this. Throw your bomb 100. Like if your bomb is up, just throw it out. If you're against a non-sustained support healer like Uther, treat it like poke damage. Just throw your bomb on people and leave. Like constantly be charging your bomb and then constantly be throwing on people. Poik does this a lot, and he actually will wear people down. Nice cleanse. Notice that they actually rotated Tyrael down here to try and like have a fight and actually force these pumpkins in. And then Tyrael had to leave. But look at what Wobby's doing. So that's a tower. That tower is dead because Tyrael went bottom and Blaze just cleared instead. They actually end up getting his contribution actually does force the pumpkins in, which gets another tower. But they're now 5 waves behind in terms of soak, which is about half a level's worth of soak. So this is a 4v4. Blaze is going to channel the mid altar here. Wobby's going to try to stop him. Notice that all the waves on the minimap are pushed in. If you look at mid and top, red has the wave more pushed in. So they lose the channel bottom. They move up to fight over top. Bad Benny is out. Nice flip by Diablo. Breeze takes a lot of damage, but he has the bump and slide. He's absolutely fine. Portal for the chase. They all back out. They get the get it. And then Wobby mounts up. As soon as the fight's over, Wobby's mounted up and gone. And he's clearing mid. Still half a level ahead. If you draft a 4-man that has lots of vision, so that your solo laner cannot be rotated on because you always know where the enemy team is, and you constantly are aggressive with that 4-man and just invade and put pressure on the enemy team, your offlaner is just able to go double soak lanes. And he's soaking. They hit level 10 first. They're now a full level ahead. Notice, no kills, no bonus experience. They're a full level ahead just off of pressuring in while Wobby just soaks. And the wave's clear. And he's going to mount up in a second and leave. Yep, there he goes. And he's going to clear top now. And notice they've now thrown Tassadar into the soaking game because they're a minute behind and they feel like they need the wave clear from Tassadar. But that means that Tyrael and Tassadar are both being used to match just Blaze, which means that there's a 4v3 going on somewhere else on the map. Medivh arguably has the fastest rotations of any hero in the game because he enables your entire team to rotate more quickly with portals. But you can't actually rotate unless the wave is clear. So if you draft Medivh and then draft shitloads of wave clear, like what does the enemy team do? You have faster rotations. And it's suddenly really hard to... I was talking about this earlier. If you have worse wave clear, you have to kill the enemy team. But how do you kill a Medivh team? Like, how do you kill someone who has portals and force of will to protect them? And the vision. So, like, you can't even get in position to dive them. Now, more than a full level ahead, just from soak. No kills. If you watch the rest of this game, it pretty much goes on like this. And I think there was a kill at some point. But it's like... We're 2 levels ahead. We're still a level ahead. Like that level lead is still there. Dignitas finally picks up 3 kills with like I think they had a talent advantage, so it was 13 to 12 or something. But Turns out soaking is pretty good. If you go watch the other matches, there's honestly not that much different. Dignitas is always ahead in experience because they're always soaking. And if you're always ahead in experience, everything else becomes much easier. Why X-Strike over D-Blade in Tricked versus Diamond Skin, Game 1? Okay, so the only time we've ever actually seen X-Blade when it wasn't a misclick was to counter the absence of cleanse. Why has Blaze become so popular in EU and less so in other regions? Because Blaze is a macro hero. Blaze just enables... Blaze is so safe in the double soak, and he does so much wave clear. And EU's always been the macro region, so EU's always been the first region to adopt heavy macro heroes. Whereas in NA and Korea, there's a lot more team fight oriented sort of things. So like if a team fight, like Genji was adopted in Korea and NA instantly, and Genji took a little longer to catch on in EU. Arguably, Genji hasn't caught on in EU because there's drafts in EU that don't even have a Genji in them, which I don't think happens in other regions. And then Blaze is instantly first pick in EU because wave clear. I don't think he's sleeper or less practice. I just think that these teams value different things. I think macro, always having your macro on point is step one to being a good team, though. Bunker versus Combustion. Bunker is better in competitive, straight up. The lower cooldown, unless you have some sort of wombo combo with Combustion that's guaranteed to land, which the only one I can think of is like VP or Leyline Seal, then you should just always go Bunker. Also, the amount of bunker... The amount of damage that a bunker will do to a building is just silly. Like, if everyone knows how to get in and out of the bunker and stagger their autos and hit the thing. Was Fnatic losing soak from the offlane or the 4-man? They were losing soak from the offlane. Because they were basically 4v4 bottom, and then Blaze was just soaking mid-top, and Tyrael couldn't keep up with that. And then the wave would push into the towers would kill the wave. Bada bing, bada boom. You can't get that soak anymore. So the only time we've seen X-Blade in competitive play, where it wasn't a misclick, was as a way to solve the cleanse problem. Lucy doesn't have cleanse. If you get judgmented as Genji, and there's follow-up, you should just die. X-Strike allows you to dodge the judgment, essentially. So X-Strike is picked instantly, and Trick just holds it. And I think they literally just picked X-Strike here because they thought that this was going to be Judgment. Turns out it wasn't. Trick versus Diamond Skin Game 2, Lava Brain. This is not actually a question, but it was clarified for me as to what the question is. Like, why did they go Lava Wave? So we've already talked a lot this show actually about how important wave clear is on Tomb. A lot of interesting Tomb games this week. And Lava Wave gives you instantaneous wave clear of an entire lane. It can pretty much negate Merc pressure. It can almost negate a Webweaver wave. Webweavers spawn whenever they run into minions. So if you Lava Wave a lane and then your wave pushes way far up, the Webweaver spawns here. Webweavers lose health over time no matter what. So if you have a lane... And look at this. Look at that. That's free soak. This Webweaver is now going to do nothing because it's going to be fighting minions the whole way without a wave of its own to support it. Cav, your stream is easily the most single educational hot stream I've ever watched. Just wanted to give props and say thanks for doing what you do. Thank you, Sokatag. I appreciate that. So top is now dealt with. They need to defend mid. Rag can fort mid. Actually, fort's bottom. He can actually fort bottom and hit mid. So like Rag on Tomb of the Spider Queen, especially with Lava Wave, can just straight up negate turn-ins. It's actually so insane. I would dearly love to see a team at some point run a comp that's just like all wave clear with Rag, and they never fight. They just constantly clear waves, and if the enemy team turns in, they don't even fight over turn-ins. Like, the enemy team turns in, great. We'll just clear it. And then they hold their gems for like ever until the 14-minute mark, and then they turn in at 14 minutes and start just chaining turn-ins. Would love to see that. So even though they're behind in experience, if they can't actually end the game because Lava Wave is constantly pushing out waves. I actually am kind of sad this was Submerge over double Lava Wave. I think double Lava Wave would have gotten so much value. But in the end, turns out waveclear wins games on Tomb. It really comes down, like, Lava Wave is really good waveclear. So it's essentially macro on an R button. You're giving up a heroic to have better macro. I kind of think Lunara with Let Them Wither is secretly OP on team. I don't know about that. Lunara's waveclear in the early game isn't that good. Sim vs LFM. Why Tracer Sylve combo? So this was I think the third game that Sylvanas was drafted in HGC. And the question is, why? Nature's Culling is a level 7 talent. Yeah. Let Them Wither is a 16 talent. Is the scaling jump for Tomb 14 or 15 minutes? It's 14 minutes. It's in the patch notes. If you go to Heroes patch notes and go look at the Tomb patch notes, it's in there. Like, it's not a secret. They actually put it in the patch notes because Tomb games were going for too long. Tomb at one point had the longest game time, average game time of any map. Does Nexus Master have it at 15 minutes? Seems like a pretty easy thing to like mistype, but pretty sure that's right. Anyway, LFM Esports versus Simplicity. Why Sylvanas? So the Sylvanas doesn't make sense to me, honestly. So the way Blaze works is... The way Battlefield of Eternity in general works is you have race comps and you have defense comps. If you have defense comps, you need some other way to get ahead. The other way you get ahead is having really good wave clear in the off lane. So you have an off laner who can clear waves very efficiently and come back to the fight when necessary so that they're forcing on to the 5v4 under your immortal, you're fine. And you have race comps who just are all in on the race. Their objective is to win the immortal. If they win the immortal, they can do stuff with it. Sylvanas helps you do stuff with the immortal. Tracer's not good at racing the immortal. Blaze is not good at racing the immortal. Tyrael's not good at racing the immortal. Malfurion's not good at racing the immortal. So LFM Esports, like, I think drafting Sylvanas is actually fine if you draft a race comp and just really commit to winning the race. But Simplicity with Greymane Li Ming had better race than LFM did. So LFM has to kill Simplicity, then get the immortal, then push with the immortal, then get a lead out of it. But with double tank, they're 100% dependent on the Tracer killing someone to get that kill, because Sylvanas can do spread damage, but she can't really do single target damage unless she puts herself in a vulnerable position where she can just die to Li Ming. So this is just bad drafting. Like, the first 3 picks needed to literally be all different heroes than this. Although Tyrael Tracer's okay. Like, Tyrael Tracer's actually good. If this had been a different hero, these 4 picks would have been fine. But the Sylvanas just doesn't make sense. And the Sylvanas would be fine if these 4 picks were, like, all different. Literally, I'd want all 4 of these heroes to be different if I'm in the last pick Sylvanas. Game 2, was Brightwing a good idea at all? So the basic idea here is good. You have 2 globals, which means you can continually soak lanes. And then if you go double build on Hanzo, you can just race bosses really fast. So the enemy team has to come to you to respond to the fact that you're soaking. And then as soon as you see them, you just do boss. Bam. Great win condition. They never executed that, so it never happened. Really? Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe it's 15 minutes. I should go check, guys. Maybe it's 15 minutes. I guess it is 15 minutes, not 14. I was wrong. Thank you, Zenhai. This is going to be so annoying to test. It's actually not that bad because now you have the target info panel. You can just click on them. For shame. I am actually ashamed. It's actually 15 minutes. I thought it was. I swear it was 14. Oh well. So it's a good idea. They just didn't do it very well. The globals are good. But once Tyrael is holy ground, like you have to make sure Tyrael's not there when you're racing bosses. Just explain GFE versus HGG. Okay, so I knew there were going to be a lot of questions about this, especially once we lost. So I thought with the Volskaya changes coming that we should have a cheese strat for Volskaya that would sort of throw people off and wouldn't reveal anything about how we want to play the map. And so the basic premise here is old school Juice Pirates. You double soak with the Falstad. You push in, get a fort. As soon as you hit 10, you medevac behind keep, kill the keep with Sank plus Gust plus Expulsion Zone to give you the time to kill it. We actually had really good luck with it in scrims. We didn't run it all that much. But basically, it's just, if a team took us to Volskaya, we wanted to be able to cheese them out. So there were a lot of questions of, explain the game. Why do pro teams even try these cheese strategies? I mean, it's kind of obvious they aren't good. Isn't it better to try copy teams from other regions? We actually have not lost with this strat in scrims once we perfected the draft order. So it is good. Also, it gives you another, like, it's kind of a throwaway game. Either you lose it or you don't, but it gives you another free first pick. Right? Because you're gonna, if you win the game, great. If you lose the game, you're guaranteed to get first pick because you opt for first pick. That's what you want. If you want map pick, then it's a little bit different. But we, as a team, prefer first pick. So, and honestly, if we'd banned the Cassia, I think we win. No team we'd practice against this in scrims had even thought about drafting Cassia. It just wasn't their hero pool. I should have thought of it because I know it's in Krone's hero pool, so I'm actually willing to take the responsibility for this loss. Pretty much all on me. There were some errors in execution by the team, but really it was just the Cassia completely shut down the push, which made it impossible to get the fort. Is it significantly harder to practice cheese strats because it's more difficult to execute once an opponent has seen it? It is. We basically can practice it once versus each team we scrim against. So we scrim against, and we're not scrimming against the HGC teams we're playing in the next 2 weeks. So for instance, we haven't scrimmed Tempo Storm for the last 2 weeks. Was it exactly about Cassia? Cassia has infinite armor versus auto attacks, and she just doesn't die. Like, look at this. This is Feel the Heat Zarya at full, like nearly full energy. See how Krone's health bar isn't moving at all? You guys see that? And Krone can literally just, like, as long as he's stutter stepping, the only way to stop this is CC, but by the necessity of the comp, we have no stuns or roots. We can't stop him from moving. So unless Krone messes up his stutter stepping, we cannot kill him. He effectively has like 10,000 health. And then he also has a Tassadar who can shield him, and then he can charge strikes to get the cleave value from the healing, and he has an Uther. Like, we cannot kill him. The reverse is not true. He can kill us. And then we've never had a situation where we hit 10 but the fort was still alive. I think the correct play here was actually to immediately medevac behind keep and kill the keep, and then have Falstad fly out as the keep was dying and continue to push in the lane and eventually get the fort. I feel like people outside the pro scene really undervalue Cassia. The thing is, Cassia dies to a lot of meta heroes. Like, Cassia dies to any hero that does significant amounts of ability damage. And her short range makes her really easy to get shit on by CC tanks. So in order to draft Cassia correctly and 100% safely, I think in most drafts she has to be in the 4-5 or the 5. So you have to last pick her. But there's a huge emphasis on damage heroes right now because there's so many good damage heroes in the game. So you tend to pick your damage early on. Isn't Pinpoint at 7 better for sieging Zarya? Yes. Yes, it is. Explosive Barrier is also better for waveclear, and it would have actually done ability damage, which might have helped against the Cassia. But we never played into a Cassia, and B-Kid does not play a lot of Zarya. B-Kid pretty much only plays Zarya in cheese comps, so... And again, we didn't practice it that much, but we just wanted to be able... We just didn't want to play Volskaya because the map was shit. Volskaya is a completely different map now, so... As to why cheese, if you always draft standard, people only never need to worry about you drafting standard. If you have like a handful, my rule is 10%. If you have 10% of your strats or pocket strats that maybe only work once, that's fine, because it makes you unexpected. It makes you difficult to anticipate in the draft. But if you always draft standard 100% of the time, people are going to be like, well, you always draft standard. We'll just plan to outdraft you based on what you like to pick. For instance, in all 3 of the other games where we drafted standard and outdrafted Heroes Hearth pretty much always drafts standard. In scrims, they actually will occasionally try things, but I don't think I've ever seen them draft anything but standard, except for the Asmo game on Volskaya in pro play. And so, like on Volskaya, we were like, well, maybe they won't draft standard, so we'll just draft a cheese comp. Because it's the only time they've shown a tendency to do it. Why not Law and Order with the blow-up comps? This is game... Draft cheese once, now you don't have to do it again all season, and people still have to account for cheese. Exactly. And, like... I think a fun day is thinking up cheese... Like, I'll spend 2 or 3 hours just, like, thinking up cheese comps. The tricky part isn't thinking them up, it's actually getting the team to practice them and figuring out the counters and, like, how do we pick the draft order so it's not obvious. But when you have people on a team who are like known for being able to think up cheese comps, then you have to think about cheese all the time, and I have a reputation for that. Not even just cheese, but like off the wall strategies. Like you have to be wary of people like that. The same reason people are very wary of drafting against Tempo Storm, because Psalm occasionally just breaks out triple melee with no tank, or Kerrigan comps like out of nowhere. Like you have to be aware of those, and if you're not, then you can just lose in draft. So the question is, why not Law and Order with Judgment for the blow up? And I think that's reasonable, but Holy Ground is just so strong. There's so many chokes on Battlefield of Eternity. We got so much Holy Ground value in terms of splitting fights. I mean, even technically Reciprocate is the better level 7 if you're really trying to just blow one person up off of Judgment, but the movement speed and attack speed on the level 7 is just so good. So it's not like a purely one. I don't know why YouTube's not loading. I'm gonna refresh the page. The amount of value you get out of the other talents doesn't necessarily work the well. Also, we had a lot of... I mean, we had a lot of damage with the Tracer. If the Tracer bomb goes off, nothing else should matter. And so that's just a... Biggie and B-Kid just have to coordinate the Judgment Bomb, and everything else, everything dies. Like, we're primarily trying to build up the Lucio. Bomb plus Judgment is enough to kill Lucio. That was really weird. Internet was freaking out. The other question about this game was 21 minutes in, why did B-Kid almost ruin a God Mosh with Judgment? I think the answer to this is really that everyone thinks Judgment does more damage than it does. So Fury lives here by like some miracle and gets a beautiful Mosh, and then Judgment comes in. I think the Judgment actually does kill. So Soundbearer, we kite it out. The Force Wall's there. Mosh starts. And we really just want to kill the Lucio. The Judgment actually does kill the Lucio, but it does knock Tassadar out. Biggie misses the bomb on Tassadar, but it doesn't matter because Tassadar still had E up anyway. But we still end up getting the chase down there. Just a little bit of, you know, heat of the moment, you're in a team fight, you want to close the gap and get onto them. Is Wintermute bugged on the HGC patch? No, Wintermute was bugged on the Mayev patch. So now Wintermute is bugged on the HGC patch because we're playing on the Mayev patch with Mayev disabled. But it was not bugged before. How mock drafts meta was this draft? I didn't get any inspiration from mock drafts on that. Can we just crown Fury as the god of mosh pits already? It's okay with me. How is server preference determined and how much does it factor into how well a team does? This is actually a really interesting question. So there's always an away team and a home team, and every team has an established preference for either central or west. GFE is a west team. HHE is a central team because I think they have East Coast players. So we were the home team. And home team gets map pick and away team gets first pick. And then it's loser's choice. And the thing about it is, in phase 1, you play against every team in phase 1 and you play against every team in phase 2. In phase 1, if you were the home team, you're the away team in phase 2. So both teams get to play on their server of choice. If you count all 10 weeks of league play. But it's first one way and then the other. I have noticed a significant difference in our win rate on heroes like Tracer on West versus Central. I don't know if that could be a draft thing. There's a lot of other factors and variables to account for, so I don't know if it's purely that. But definitely, Biggie dies a lot more when he's playing on Central than when he's playing on West. And we actually do account for it in our scrims. If we know we're playing a Central team, we'll actually scrim on Central the week prior to make sure we're adjusted to it. The players talk about it constantly because it's a difference of like 40 ping for them, which is a big difference in terms of reaction time. Average human reaction time is 0.18 to like 0.35 seconds, somewhere in that range is the average. Well, 40 ping is like you're like doubling your reaction time essentially. It's a big deal. Why is Volskaya so much more popular in NA than in other regions? Do you think this is going to change on the new patch? I think Volskaya is just a bad map. I think NA is willing to play bad maps if they think they can win on it, and other regions just like, fuck that map, let's play just straight up and see who's better. I think it's really what it comes down to. Which is strange because EU invents more cheeses than any other region. You know, starting with the Asmo cheeses and Lost Vikings things, and Juice Pirates was originally invented by an EU team. Interesting. If I were going to compare, I'd love having because my top 16 contains carries Zarya gas. That's actually not a good. That's actually not a good hero pool for a pro player because those don't overlap at all in terms of the drafts that you would want to construct from those heroes. Last minute questions. Thoughts on Tranquility? I remember KSV was picking it. Maybe it was last week though. I still think Tranquility is not that good. I said it when Malfurion got reworked. I looked at the numbers in the patch notes. I was like, armor's good. If you can armor stack with it, then maybe it's viable against certain damage. But in the current meta, it's not good against any of the damage. I don't like Tranquility. Thoughts on Jaina build? Sake picked Lingering, Arcane, Q. And Michael Udaw picked Globes, Frost Armor because Zeratul, Q. Any reason to pick something else than Q at 7, or is Q... I actually would really like to see someone try Ice Fury Wand with a Tyrael. For the increased attack speed, like our other increased attack speed. I've not seen anyone pick Ice Fury Wand in pro play, and I think it could be good. But I think that Jaina runs out of mana, and so you need either Fingers of Frost or Arcane Intellect at 4. If you're going to go Frost Armor, then you have to go Fingers of Frost. It's not optional at that point. And Frost Armor is really good into certain heroes, like Zeratul. And if you're going to go Arcane Intellect, then you don't necessarily need Fingers of Frost. So you go Lingering instead, because Lingering is really good to help you get Q resets. You mentioned cheese strats, though. Those are cheese heroes. I mean, those are the heroes that were central to the strat. I do think Jaina has more build diversity. Actually, I haven't checked Jaina's win rates on talents in like a minute. But let's go check Jaina's win rates on talents since her rework. I have a big question. That is actually all of the post-show questions. So if anyone has any questions from chat, I'd be happy to answer them. I do have scrims in a few minutes. So I won't be able to answer too much, but I'll do my best. So this is Jaina's win rates. And you can see it's pretty... Yeah, Ice Fury Wand just doesn't seem to have as much versatility as the Q build, despite the fact that it has a comparable win rate. In terms of win rate builds, it's just like not there. Just doesn't exist. It's interesting. Why are Malfurion and Tracer always together? Because Malfurion can heal Tracer without being there. So one of the very first things I noticed about the Malfurion rework is regrowth is 20 seconds, right? If you put a regrowth on Tracer, Tracer can just go like halfway across the map, literally. And if Malfurion has someone to Moonfire, he can continue to heal Tracer. Also, the cleanse is like a global range as long as you have Q on Tracer. So Tracer Malfurion can support Tracer without having to compromise his own position in any way, shape, or form. Pretty straightforward. You banned Junkrat in the Juice Pirates game for his anti-siege power, right? Yes, that's exactly what we did. He's really good at anti-siege. Yes. The Zergro got it. It's dive sustain. Thoughts on Law and Order? Law and Order is more damage and more shielding. And Holy Ground is more space control. It's just a question of which one you're trying to do. Holy Ground is really good. I'm an amateur tank. Zane Hyde's a good tank player. I wouldn't call him an amateur tank. He's like semi-pro. With relatively low game knowledge. I've had a poor time properly punishing ETC slides, particularly when I'm a noob. Any advice? I think in order to answer that question, we have to define what a good ETC slide is. ETCs that just slide in to a team, like your team's here, their team's here, and ETC just slides in, that ETC should just die. The policy of your team should be if ETC slides in, everyone focuses him and he just dies. The only mechanic he has to save himself is W and try to walk away. If you go watch Breeze play ETC, Breeze is always looking for like flanks. He'll go around and he'll slide through the enemy team. The stun's still there, but he's now with his team. He slid from behind the enemy team to his team. He's safe. He only slides directly in on moshes that he baits or ganks that are going to be 1v1. So you also have to play around the range. If it's a max range slide, you can actually impale it and it'll just cancel the slide. Like if he's max distance away from you and tries to slide onto you or one of your teammates, you can actually impale it to cancel the slide if your ping is low enough. If you have like above 100 ping, that's not going to work. But if it's between like 20 and 60, you can actually impale it. Same thing for Murd and Stormbolt. You can actually stun the slide. Lucio can boop it. And again, it's just a question of, is it a max range slide? So if you force the ETC to have a max range slide in order to initiate, then you can cancel it, and then he doesn't have slide. And then he's in a really awkward position because now he can't initiate for 12 seconds. Right? And that's just a positional thing. You have to play patiently around the slide. Most ETCs are not willing to play patiently. They'll just slide in. Even if it's a max range slide. If they think they can get it, they'll just slide in. The main problem with the noob is that he's very vulnerable to getting bursted out because of his low health, despite the spell armor and his level 1 talent if you're in against ability damage. So you have to play very carefully as a noob. Like you have to... Yeah, your threat range is the tail end of his slide. That's exactly correct. Also, JPL is probably the best noob player in EU. I would go look at his replays. He spends a lot of time just hiding in fog. One of the big things that most tanks don't do correctly is just hide in fog. Just, unless you're a waveclear tank, like if you're main tanking Blaze or Johanna, that's fine. But if you're not, just hide in bushes. And if the enemy team doesn't know where you are, they have to play safe because you can kill them. Right? If you get a stun, your team should fall up and that person should be dead. Yes, I believe the new picks were draft mistakes by my team. We had no save mechanics, so I had to play safe too. I wanted to hide in fog, but we had no front line. Should always have a front line. And drafting is hard. Drafting is just really difficult. It's something your team is going to have to improve at if you guys want to succeed in open. But will Maiev be completely competitively viable to punish Double Warrior? I think Maiev will be competitively viable to punish anything because her numbers are overtuned as fuck. Like, if you have God and then a bunch of regular human beings, whoever drafts God is probably going to win. Her numbers are really that overtuned. Like, it doesn't matter that she doesn't have sustain. Her numbers are very overtuned. Her numbers are still overtuned. Cursing? Maiev warrants cursing. She really is that overtuned. Maiev is very, very strong, guys. Jaina builds. Yeah, it's all the post show questions. I have scrims in 15 minutes, so I'm gonna go get some water and prep for VOD review with the team. Thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. Thank you for the questions. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. That was actually a 2.5 hour post show. Near enough. I think that's the longest post show we've had. It seems like they get longer every week because you guys keep asking more and more involved questions, and I have to go into more details. I don't mind, but hopefully you guys are enjoying it. When May of Live is HGC will be released, I believe it will be the release patch, but Mayev will be disabled. The only way to see, the thing is, the only way to check is to go to tournament, and on tournament the patch is there, but I don't think Mayev is there. Anyway, thank you guys for watching. I really appreciate it. I'll be back next week with post show number 4, or post show number 5, talking about who gets to go to Clash. Hopefully it's GFE from all the regions, and what the matchups may or may not look like. Thank you for watching, everyone, and remember, this is stream where we never really lose. We always win, or we learn something. Learning is always a win. Have a good day, everyone.